I am Joe from Leavenworth Snowmobile Rentals. Welcome to the mountains. We're going to go over some safety tips today that are hopefully going to keep you happy and safe. Most people who get badly injured on a rental snowmobile do so because they hit the gas instead of the brake. And the reason why is because you don't know where the brake is right now. Your brain doesn't know where it is, your muscles don't know where the brake is. The reason why is because this is a clutch on a motorcycle, it's not a brake on a quad, so it doesn't matter what you've driven before, you're not used to your left hand being your brake. The solution is we're going to have you hit the brake 20 times in the first 10 minutes of your ride. You need to get used to the machine. You need to get used to the brake on the machine, where it is. Train your brain and train your muscles where the brake is. You should also be firm with the throttle in the first 10 minutes so you know how much power you have. The power in a snowmobile is similar to the power in a car. This is not a scooter rental. This is a very powerful machine. And I want you to know how much power you have. So not in the first minute, but in the first 10 minutes, you should hit the throttle half to 3/4 of the way and know how much power you have. And then immediately hit the brake, okay? Hit the throttle, hit the brake 20 times in the first 10 minutes. Get used to what you have. Skid with the brake, hit the brake slowly. I don't want you to be afraid of the power. I want you to know it's there. If you go riding along, start out very slow and ride slow for an hour and never know how much power you have, when you hit the throttle by accident, you're not going to be holding on tight enough, you're going to fly off the back of the machine. So again, in the first 10 minutes, you're going to hit your brake 20 times, and you're also going to see how much power you have. You're going to hit the throttle. Snowmobiles like to be driven aggressively as far as the throttle. That doesn't mean you need to go fast. However, it's good for the machine to spin the track. So what that sounds like is want versus you really want to rev the engine. When you rev the engine, it churns up the snow under the machine, which cools the machine, and it also lubricates the machine. You can drive it as slow as you want, but use the throttle in more of a want type motion rather than one plain steady throttle. Okay, next I'm going to show you the correct riding position on a snowmobile. And that is, you're going to be seated like this with your toes tucked in underneath, straight in front of you. Tucking your toes down here does two things. First of all, even though it may look like plastic here on your particular sled, there's always some sort of metal down there that you can really tuck your toes into. And when you do that, it gives you the control. I'm not using any hands, and I can hold myself on this machine, which is important because you're going to be leaning to the side on the machine. The other thing is warm air is coming out on your feet down there from the engine. It keeps your toes warm. You can also move your feet back if it's more comfortable, or you would like your feet here back a little bit so that when you lean hard, your full weight is on your feet. Either way, your feet are in a comfortable position. When I say lean on a snowmobile, it's very important you understand that that's how you steer. So, I know the handlebars are here. When you start to steer with your skis, if you're on hard packed snow, your handlebars and your skis will initiate a turn well. When you're in soft snow, it will not work like that. The one thing about controlling the snowmobile that's extremely important is you lean where you want to go. If you want to go left, you lean left. If you want to go right, you lean right. You always lean where you want to go. So this is your riding position. If you want to make a left turn on packed snow, you're going to turn the handlebars a little bit to the left. That's going to initiate a turn, and you're going to have a lean to the left. If you lean to the left, you will go left. If you lean to the right, you will go right. You will always go where you lean. If you are powder riding, what I do is keep your skis pointed straight. Don't try and steer in the powder. Try not to steer in the powder with the skis and only lean. When you lean on a snowmobile, you lean your whole rear end off the seat, or your whole rear end off the seat. This is a left-hand turn, this is a right-hand turn. If I'm going to be on the snowmobile for 4 hours and I'm going to be making turns, if I'm turning with my shoulders or my head, I'm going to be in this position. I'm really going to wear out my back. If I just slide my rear end over, Now my body is leaning even more weight over, and yet I can stay centered, so there's not nearly as much fatigue on my body. Let me talk about how to ride in powder so that you understand some of the things that can happen to you on the trail. Out there you're going to experience both groomed trails, which is packed powder snow, and you're going to experience soft powder. And it's really important that you understand the snowmobile is going to handle completely different in this. The conditions can also change from morning to night, from hour to hour, even from half hour to half hour, as quickly as you're driving through different elevations. Let's talk about getting sucked off the trails. A lot of times during the season, people will come back from a ride, or they'll call me and say, come get me out of a ditch. I don't know what happened. I just got sucked off the trail. And they use that language because that's the feeling you get. So let me explain what happens. Let's imagine now that you're driving down a groomed trail. When you're on the groomed trail, you always obey the rules of the road. So you'll stay to the right. Oncoming traffic will be on their right. Where you're going to be riding, which is a safe place to ride, is about 2 feet from the edge of the trail. So you're on a nice groomed trail, and it's the middle of the day, so you've been riding for an hour or two. Your weight is kind of centered and you're kind of relaxed in the middle of the machine. Well, what's going to happen is, in various spots, the powder is probably drifted onto the trail and there's a little bit of rough snow within 2 feet of the side of the trail. Well, what that snow is going to do is it's going to grab your right ski. It's going to cause a little bit of drag, like a half-inflated tire would in your car, and it's going to drift your snowmobile closer to the edge of the trail. Well, before you know it, you're a foot closer to the end of the trail, and now you're pretty nervous. And before you can think of what to do, you're actually on the edge of the trail. So now your right ski's in powder, your left ski is still on the groomer. In fact, almost all of your sled is on the groomer, just that right ski is in powder. But by the time you notice, you're really nervous, so you jerk the steering wheel to the left, which also sets you off balance. Now your balance is to the right and your skis are pointed in a full left-hand turn, which in powder says, left turn, go right. Now you're telling this machine in 2 different ways to shoot you off the trail. And that's what happens when you get sucked off the trail. There's a very easy way to prevent that. When you're riding on a groomer and you're 2 feet from the edge of the trail, simply keep your weight to the left. You don't have to be in a full lean, just keep your rear end on the left-hand side of the seat. What this is going to do is weight that left ski. It's going to make your left ski the dominant ski, and it's going to keep it where it's headed. Now when the right-hand ski catches a little fluff on the side of the trail, it'll still catch the fluff, but it won't steer it at all because your left ski is the dominant ski. It's in control, and the right ski will just fluff off anything that's dragging on it. Okay? Also, if at this point you did see yourself drifting to the right and you jerked your steering wheel to the left, because you're already leaning to the left, the snowmobile will obey its command. It's going to go left because you always lean where you want to go. If you're leaning left, then the sled will go left, especially if you're turning the ski to the left. Getting stuck on a snowmobile can happen a lot in one day if the conditions are right. So it's pretty common on a full day tour that somebody's going to get stuck. What I mean by stuck is you've found yourself in a little bit too deep of snow and you've probably come to a stop and then tried to get started again. And when you go to get started, the track digs a trench. Now the track is spinning in the trench and your snowmobile's not moving. It's very important, especially when you're on an unguided tour, that you know how to get out of this situation. You need to do 2 things to get unstuck. It's very important that you remember there's 2 things to do, not 1. The obvious thing to do is pick up the back end of the snowmobile and put it in fresh snow. The not so obvious thing to do is fix why you got stuck. So, there's a couple of reasons that are very common that you got stuck. Number 1 is you may have stopped on an uphill, and then when you went to get started again, the snowmobile wouldn't move because the hill was too steep. In some cases, the hill doesn't have to be steep at all, and the deeper the snow, sometimes you don't even need to be on a hill at all. You're just stopped in super deep snow. So there's being on a hill, there's super deep snow. There can also be a stick, a twig, or a stump that you're hooked on that you don't even know you're hooked on because you just happen to have stopped in that spot. So The first thing that you need to do to get unstuck is fix why you're stuck. If you're stuck on a stump, then clear the stump from underneath your sled. If you're facing uphill, you have to fix that before you're going to be able to go. And what you would do to get unstuck if you're uphill is grab a ski and pull the snowmobile around, face it downhill. Now you've fixed why you're stuck. The second thing I would do is to pick up the back of the machine and put it in fresh snow. You've got to lift it up out of the trench. Now, when you lift in the back of the sled up out of the trench, if you have 2 people or 3 people, that is the best way to do it. If there's a group, you want the group to help. Use 2 or 3 people. When you lift up the back of the machine, it's best to have two heavy weights lifted straight up and then have a third person shove it over. Better to have 2 people lift straight and 1 shove over than the 2 strong guys go like this and twist with 400 pounds of snowmobile in their hands. So starting the machine, typically there's 2 or 3 on buttons. There's a kill switch, there's sometimes a safety tether, and then there's also the key. Make sure all of your ignitions are on, and then if you have a pull cord, you're going to pull the engine to a start. If you have an automatic key start, you'll turn the key. If the machine is not starting, it's typically not starting because you have an ignition off and you need all the ignitions on. So if your machine's not starting and all your buttons are on, the only other reason a sled typically wouldn't start is because it's been flooded. In which case, you'll go full throttle with your thumb, pull the pull cord or turn the key until the engine clears itself out and starts up. Okay, let's talk about oncoming traffic. So you'll definitely encounter other riders on the trails. They can be going anywhere from 60 miles an hour to putting along when you come across them. The proper etiquette on a snowmobile trail is to slow down to what would be if you were on water, say a no wake zone. So you're gonna pass the other party very slowly. As soon as you see them, you hit your brake, slow down and pass as slow as you can. Something else to be aware of is the consequences of your actions. The consequences of your crashes. Driving tricks are not a good idea, but if you're going to experiment with riding a snowmobile, do it in an area where it's safe. Drive extra slow, slower than you think you need to, in areas where there's a hazard on the side, like a drop off a tree or swamp or river. You guys are going to have a map of your riding area, and hopefully you've talked to your guide or a guide, and we can kind of point out what was groomed last night, what trails are in the best condition, and give you recommendations as to where to ride. It's very important that you stop every now and then at intersections and stuff, turn around and look where you've gone. If you've chosen not to take a guide with you, there's 200 miles of groomed trails out there. So make sure at every intersection you check your map and see where you are on the map so you're not lost. The first thing you're going to do when you check out with your guide, whether you're going on a guided tour or you're just being introduced to your machine, is you're going to exchange phone numbers. If I was your guide, I would have you call me right now. So when you get to the trailhead or the beginning of the ride, you're going to actually call the phone number of your guide so that it's in your phone and you can contact him whenever you want. When you're on the trail, some phones work better than others. Some are in and out of coverage. What I would do is call and then text immediately after that, and as soon as you're into a coverage area, it'll send that message out. Thanks a lot for coming out to Leavenworth Snowmobile Rentals. Get out there on the trail, have a good time, and be safe.